Hello, good morning. Can we start? Hi everyone, good morning everyone, very much welcome. Okay, I see a little bit of friction, yeah. Okay, perfect. I have full attention right now. Okay, perfect. So, good morning, very much welcome. I usually start this session by saying that what we're going to have the opportunity today is really one-time opportunity because you don't get the opportunity to exchange notes, and talk openly with your peers. But it seems like that if you are part of the World Summit of AI, you get like extra opportunities because this is actually a similar session, a repeat session, let's say, of what we did yesterday, and it was so successful that we decided to move forward with another one. So I'm really thrilled to see, that this is such, an interesting topic that all of you want to dig deeper into. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to start with the really, important question. So we're going to try to explore all together, really by putting our heads together into figuring out, how should organizations break free, from this hyper-experimentation phase, and really, being able to embrace this value-driven, enterprise-wide adoption of AI, This is such, topic of conversation. There's so much need from the industry to figure out, how to unlock monetization opportunities and meet those ROI expectations and not really breaking those ROIs. It's interesting because I think in the past few years, we've been living this peak of inflated expectations. And just for you to know, I'm Davide Palanza. I'm a research manager at IDC, so I can really attest that because I constantly, through the surveys and the conversations I have with C-level professionals across the whole globe, I really get to see, a little bit, what are the key words that are, thrown out there. And I can definitely attest to the fact that there has been a shift in the behavior. So there's no question anymore around, what is the value of AI? I think, even Stones have figured that out. I think that what the problem right now is that organizations are saying, we have to make it real. We have to figure out, how to make this, an actual opportunity for us in order to really unlock monetization opportunities. And I was just talking to, a CEO that he said something that always resonates with me, and I want to share that with you. I think it's an interesting anecdote. He was telling me, that I feel like we are in a stage right now where if you don't prove to the board that you are showing progress to AI, it feels like I'm going to have a target on my back. So I think right now, when I talk to practitioners like all of you, what I really can attest is the fact that there is a lot of pressure to be able to meet ROI expectations. There is a low tolerance for ROI, let's say, AI project failures. So there is really, a lot of desire and need, urgency to be able to prove to senior leadership, that they can keep, investing in AI the way they have been doing because there are actual results. So we're going to take it from there. So a little bit of housekeeping for today. I'm going to start setting the scene for the conversation. So I'm going to be introducing a little bit, what is the value scale when we talk about AI? What is the really, the opportunity that we're up against? And we're going to talk about where organizations are. I'm going to give a little bit of a global perspective, but obviously also try to tweak it to the European context. And also we're going to talk about, what should be, the action areas, the different, action items that organizations should be carrying forward in order to make this switch, from experimentation to enterprise-wide adoption. And then obviously we're going to then break down into tables. We're going to basically discuss around those topics further, and then we're going to reconvene in order to be able to maybe debrief together, catch, what are the critical nuggets that came up from the conversations, and sort of like taking from there. Okay. So let me start with the first slide. So I thought a lot about how to start this conversation today. And I thought, the best way to really set the scene was by giving you a little bit of a magnitude of what it means, what the AI era, what it means, that when we hear this buzzword everywhere, that AI is everywhere. So let's see a little bit what that means. So according to our latest publication, IDC has shared to the market that AI is going to be able to produce a global economic impact of almost 19.9 trillion US dollar by 2030. So just to give you a little bit of context, what that means, China's GDP is 18 trillion US dollars. So and that is the second biggest economy in the world. So that means really that AI is going to act as a force multiplier, and we estimate that the compound annual growth rate impact on the global GDP is going to be 3.5%. So again, to put in context, that means that for every dollar spent, you're going to have an impact to the global economy of $5, which basically translates to one interesting insight that I want to share with all of you, which is the fact that we always stumble upon the conversation around AI as if AI is the disruptive element, where actually the disruptive nature of AI doesn't really come from AI itself. When we break down this huge staggering number across different buckets, what I think for me was striking is to see that the real impact, the real transformation that AI brings is not really because of the opportunity for AI solution service providers to sell new products and offerings, but it's going to be the ripple effects, the shock waves that AI is going to lead to the AI supply chain. So here I'm capturing, backward AI providers, so any of those organizations that do provide back-end supplies to AI and solution service providers. Let's think about network service providers. Let's think about data storage, data security services, and computing infrastructure provider. But also, we are capturing here also forward adopters. So any of those organizations that are going to be, adopting AI and applying it vertically in a different piece of the value chain to unlock business outcomes. Could be, productivity. It could be, revenue generation opportunities. I'm going to talk a little bit about that a little bit deeper later on. So I think what is interesting is that AI, we're acknowledging that AI is going to have a transformative impact on the economy on a foundational level. So obviously organizations need to be prepared. And in IDC, we are opening this whole, let's say, storyboard around, yet again, another business transformation. I know we just thought that we were past the hype of digital transformation, but we are against a new one. But this time, I think the interesting bit is that this transformation that we are up against, it's not going to be around the adoption of digital technologies, but it's going to be around the point-wise adoption of artificial intelligence as a cornerstone, as a foundational cornerstone to really generate value. Generate value through the development of new products and services that will be co-developed with machines. We're going to talk about, the overhauling of internal or external processes that will become even a little bit more autonomous. Let's think about, the new big word that is coming up there, the agentic AI frameworks. We're going to talk about, the molding of the total experience that orbits around an organization. So the way we engage with consumers, self-oriented journeys are really becoming prevalent pretty much everywhere. We're going to see, the impact on, the way we engage with employees, with, a digital assistants, advisors that will help our employees sort of bridge the gap when it comes to their from strategy to implementation. And lastly, obviously, the way we engage with our business partners as well. So you might wonder, okay, so what's the time tag here? What's the time frame? So interestingly, according to our research, we were provided basically a best estimate in terms of what is the time scale here. So if the slides are gonna... Okay, perfect. So basically, according to our estimates, organizations in the next 3-4 years are going to go through basically 3 major stages of transformation. We're going to talk about experimentations, which it's exactly where we are right now. We're going to talk about adoption of AI. And then we're going to talk about acceleration of AI. And our best estimate is that those organizations that will be able to basically tackle the barriers of AI by 2025 would be those organizations that are going to be better positioned to basically unlock the full opportunity of the AI full business transformation by 2027. So interestingly, I just want to share this point. All organizations are going to get there, eventually. What's going to change? Obviously, it's the time to get there, and that is going to have a huge impact on your competitiveness as an organization. But let's dig deeper into the GenAI scramble, which is exactly where we are right now. So why scramble? So what we've seen through our research and the conversations we had with C-levels professionals across all industries, trust me, is that in the aftermath of ChatGPT, we've seen basically lots of organizations rushing, scrambling to allocate budget to experiment this new technology. But what that led to is that we've seen this proliferation, germination of scattered islands of innovations where they were literally, bounded to the specific departments and focused on internal-facing use cases, mostly productivity-based. So there was no, this is what I like to call the whole is less than the sum of its parts, because we've seen that there was so much fragmentation, dispersion of efforts. There was no connective tissue, no underlying, strategy in terms of what generative AI could mean for the organizations as a whole. But more importantly, what was the long-term strategy? What was, how the generative strategy builds on your broader digital value acceleration journey. And interestingly, I think, this whole scramble, just to give you a couple of pointers in terms of what we mean when we say scramble, obviously led to a lot of lack of efforts, lack of results. Just to give you an example, we estimate that in 2013, basically in 2023, organizations have been exploring something like hundreds of use cases, and out of those hundreds of use cases, only 39 were the use cases that were actually piloted by an average organizations, and out of those 39 use cases, only 5 were actually those use cases that actually made it into production. So as you can follow the math, there is so much value that gets lost in the process. So I think ultimately it's really about understanding what should be doing, and this is exactly what we're going to talk about during our brainstorming together. So as you can see, we're going to focalize the conversation around this switch, from the scramble phase, where, as I said, the focalization is on productivity-based, internal-facing use cases, mostly focalized on generative AI, so as if, anything that we learned so far, around AI has been forgotten, to AI pivot. So basically, we're going to be talking around, multi-departmental use cases that are supposed to be unlocking not just productivity gains, but really authentically revenue generation, organic growth opportunities. And I think that also the interesting part is that when we think about the AI pivot, is that we're talking about AI. So we're talking about hybrid AI, which is sort of like a blend, between what we learned so far when we think about interpretative AI, predictive AI, with generative AI, because it's all part of a broader tool set that we need to be able to equip ourselves with. So there's going to be 3 major story arcs we're going to talk about. So there's one around strategy. So this is really about setting, as I said before, an enterprise-wide roadmap vision in terms of how do we want to, get there? What is the goal there from a really business perspective? So here, maybe those tables that are going to talk about this, I really would like maybe for you to focalize attention on, what are the super use cases. So when we say super use cases, we mean, those use cases that will be able to get to the most business outcomes you can expect. So not just productivity, but maybe also business organic growth, for instance. But also, those use cases that are feasible for you based on your prior investments in AI, based on your maybe tech debt mitigation journey, and complexity, obviously, of the use case. The second key area that we'd like to explore is instead the one around governance. So I would like maybe for you to focalize attention in how do we get that multi-stakeholder alignment. So maybe if you could share an exchange notes in terms of what you think works in terms of that, and also how do you bring people with you? We have this theme in IDC that we say that it's not just about adopting a solution, it's about also adapting to the solution. So thinking around backwards in terms of how that adopting the solution will impact the way we collaborate with one another, the way we shape our processes, and also how do we bring people with us? Because obviously we are all on the same page when it comes to the lack of the AI literacy, of course. But I think it's really important to understand, how we shape the communication via strategy. How do we talk to people? How do we align ourselves with them? And lastly, we're going to talk about technology cost. So we're going to talk about, I think, the number one factor that is hindering organizations from really making the switch, which is the fear of the costs. Of course, we've seen that when it comes to experimentation, we are thinking around ad hoc deployments, which obviously might not really optimize and fit for purpose. And obviously, that leads to the fact that the second that we get away from the experimentation phase and we move into production, really feel like costs are getting out of hands. And I think it's really about really scaling the value of generative AI investments, and treating those assets as really assets of the organization that we want to scale. We want to share across departments with standardized approaches, let's say transparent and consistent decision-making across organizations. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So I see that during my initial introduction, the room has basically doubled, so I'm super excited to see that. So maybe what we're going to do basically now is that we're going to break down into tables. I think it's better because there's so many of us. And just take it from there. So try to maybe so each table would be basically assigned with a different Microsoft facilitator. So maybe let's just help each table to walk through these questions and underpin what are the most important topics. And then we're going to reconvene together. We're going to share a little bit what were the insights that were discussed, and then we're going to take it from there. Thank you so much, and have a great conversation. Okay, guys, time is up. I'm so sorry. I'm mortified, but unfortunately, we need to be strict with time permission here because I think in 15 minutes we need to leave the room for someone else. So, what I would really like is get an opportunity to understand what you all guys have been discussing about. So maybe what I would really enjoy if each table could appoint a sort of like spokesperson, someone that might thinks that have grasped the right nuggets from the table. So maybe let's start from this table here on the right because they're looking at me. So so maybe I don't just like really 1 minute, 2 minute statements. Yeah, that's the complexity.
I don't know where to start. 1 minute. Oh, I'm from the south of Netherlands. They talk a lot, so 1 minute is very short. Okay, a lot of use cases. Oh, yeah. Hello, that's me. A lot of use cases I heard. What was it? Like customer experience, analysis and stuff. Also the problems. How are you using platforms? Are you developing in-house? Do we have the knowledge in the company? I think we all had the same things here, and it's still quite difficult. But I see a lot of opportunities. I see a lot of people already also in production. Last year there was less because more people were just trying out and stuff. So it's good to see the production mode is right now. So
the killer use case that you came up with.
Let me.
If you give me your use case, I'm going to give you one as well.
It's the workflow optimization, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Well done.
So actually we had a very interesting conversation from different perspectives. So from engineering and energy, from banking, from supporting small businesses in Brazil, and from a chemical company. And let's say we have a couple of companies that are really getting into the maturity phase, the AI pivot, training their people, having their governance in order. And one of the things that came up, that the regular portfolio management process is being followed. Clustering use cases, I found that very interesting, and select use cases based on cluster. So like examples were the legal department, saving costs, sandbox are being opened in one of the companies to let people play with it and to understand it, but only after they followed a training. So at the chemical company, we really were looking into innovation about new molecules, new materials, and those kind of things. and speeding up, let's say, all the data and finding new things. Also in a public broadcaster, in semi-automation, they were more in the Gen AI scramble phase, finding out and experimenting with it. And the main criteria that we came up with, definitely number one was cost, cost avoidance. So all the cases that can help drive down cost. Second one were top line revenue, increasing, and also finding quick wins. I think those were one of the learnings, a couple of the learnings that we had.
Thank you so much. Let's go with this table here.
I think you cannot end. We did finish the table.
We didn't finish the table round, but I think we had very nice discussions about the topic. So what we covered was within the AI strategy, the enterprise use cases. And within the first discussions we had that there's so many angles to take in defining the use case, improving the operations internally. Am I going to provide additional value to the customer, improve customer satisfaction? Is it about creating top-line revenue? So determining and defining where the priority should be was already one of the discussions where we're like, okay, you need to probably pick one if you want to get into a use case and make it more concrete.
Yeah, absolutely.
The second topic which we discussed a lot is the request of ROI. And I think ROI was also easily pivoted towards cost, efficiency, productivity. If I'm going to implement this, how much FTE can we reduce to make it such an easy use case? And well, the summary was that, at least in the discussion that we had, that it's not always that angle of the use case that we try to build when it is about ROI of embedding generative AI in your own solution or bringing the solution to market. Well, also that is one of the challenges and the blockers of moving into more of moving beyond the ideation proof of concept phase, because getting the board literally on board to move forward, we need to open the conversation towards a broader ROI than only cost.
Love the point, yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. So we had a very diverse group with people from consultancies, the UK police, fintech, utilities, energy. And what was really nice that we saw that was a really diverse group, but a really common understanding of the challenges. So one was really about AI adoption. How do you get it really into practice with people from a one-size-fits-all approach to really customize to different personas? One really about how do you make the investment as well in your platform? So if you do not have the right data, then it's also really hard to use AI and get it into predictive modeling. And also, how do you measure the results? So, for example, within administrative services, you want to get people, for example, in the police, out there to do actually the work on the street, and they didn't become a police officer to get into administration. So how can Gen AI enforce that? But also, how can you measure and quantify the results of using it? And some really nice examples and best practice that we shared was about getting really the what on C-level engagement first to get from that scramble position to an AI pivot. Also make personas to really see what's the difference in mindset in the organization, and use peer sharing as well to get people not from a top level how to use it, but really bottom up, showing examples tailored to a specific function.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, we also decided to discuss the fun part, so the use cases, and we more or less left the governance and the cost, we left them out. Yeah? So what did we discuss about the fun part? So we said, okay, we need to start with a problem, or then it came up, should we start with an opportunity maybe, because the technology is that much disruptive, that if you just focus on solving a problem, you might miss out on some opportunities. Of course, we wanted to align that with KPIs and OKRs, and then we got back to basically the traditional model So a matrix where you have on the x-axis you have the ease of implementation, and on the y-axis you have the business benefits, where that matrix you could use to prioritize these different use cases. And then we got into the discussion about, okay, but who is supposed to prioritize this? So somebody said, okay, it should be the client, could be internal clients, could be external clients, but you need to rank these use cases. We touched upon the discussion of fears and that they needed to be addressed. And last but not least, we recognized that talent management is key to make these use cases successful.
Thank you so much.
Did you have one on the table? Any volunteers?
Who volunteers?
Yeah, that's when you're sitting too far out. No, we also had a great discussion, lots of similar stuff that we heard from the other tables, and also a very good variety of the participants, from startups to Saudi Aramco, from Deutsche Telekom to Huawei, from academia to others. I think we talked about the adoption speed and how this is this time maybe different. We talked about communication and how it breaks down from whether it's C-level down to middle management, who's maybe more afraid of losing jobs, or from the specialist to the common folks who are also more scared than anything else. So communication is maybe at the center of all of this.
We also had a very interesting conversation with a lot of different organizations and profiles as well. And we decided to also share some super use cases that we thought of. And we ended up, there was this one use case where we talked about liquid content. It's also, we have somebody here from a telco. I'm working for a public broadcaster. And actually, it's mainly about we knew in the past when there were like fixed television shows and everybody was watching the same channels, but now it's more and more with new techniques and AI, it's more and more possible to personalize all those things. So we thought about like, how can we change this into liquid content that is personalized, but also specific for you as an individual, and not as individual as, for example, Netflix. So our success metrics are, for example, engagement. We want to create a community, and we want also people to find our content so that the consumption is also high. And we have some challenges there as well. We have we need to find the right algorithm. We don't want to create a filter bubble. We want to make a diversion between what is fact, what is fictional. We thought about that. And we think that for next steps, we need to start to doing some proof of concepts, work with an innovation department, but also can be on a digital platform, start with segmentation of something like that. So that's in a nutshell. We have one last splinter group over here.
I didn't know we did have as well that table. Oh my gosh.
They took the initiative to create
There's so
their own
many
table.
of us.
Yeah, this was the oval table on the bar. Perfect. It's nice to hear that we have a lot in common next to the passion of AI, because we also went deep into the use cases. And we talked about the differences in the need for the companies or the specific individuals in how to implement the adoption of AI. And we dove into two examples. One, the gamified adoption. The personalized gamified adoption of, for example, AI within the broader companies and the big companies, but also how to tailor-make the use of AI and to teach the individuals that are part of a smaller company in how to use, for example, AI use cases for agents. And we had different standpoints on how you can take people along in the hype of AI, but we came to the realization that it's all about how you personalize the effects of the AI can have on the individual and how you can learn from it. So that was the main takeaway. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Hopefully, if there's ever gonna be a new session, you're gonna have a seat next time. Hopefully. So, how much time do I have for my final wrap up? 1 minute, perfect. We like challenges. Anyways, I'm just gonna be super brief. It was an honor having the opportunity to facilitate this conversation. Not one, but 2 conversations. So thank you so much, by the way, Microsoft, for enabling me to be here today and for really sponsoring and pulling up this for me. Thank you so much. I'm just going to wrap up by sort of like reiterating some of the takeaways that you guys have been sharing, because I really liked the conversation and it was so like genuine. I really loved it. So the first thing I'm going to say is that the first, I think, key takeaway is that generative AI doesn't mean that we should be forgetting about all the investments, all the directions that we've been doing in the past years. So I think the generative AI strategy should build on your digital value acceleration strategy, that all the investments you've been doing so far. So, for instance, for me, like the first place I would start is by looking at those use cases for which you already have a portfolio of capabilities. So, for instance, if you have been investing on, conversational agents, let's make sure, that maybe we can add on top of like NLP, and other such algorithms, maybe a newer functionalities that can help you maybe not just pull the lever of productivity, but also maybe mitigate risk by having, for instance, those conversational agents maybe summarizing for you, what your customers want and what they don't want, because maybe that could inform your product development strategies, to give you an example. Obviously, experimentation doesn't end here. So as we approach to this new phase, we will keep experimenting. But what we think we will change is that we're going to have to keep an eye on scaling. So making sure that maybe if we have invested on a specific use case around HR, maybe we could, look at adjacent areas from a content and pattern perspective, like procurement, for instance. So let's always make an effort to think about, what's the next step, and how this sort of builds on the newest steps. Another key point that was expressed is that obviously when we think about moving from experimentation to adoption, you have to think about AI-ready infrastructure. You have to think about the platforms to keep that scalability going. But I think the people component is so critical. Making sure that we communicate that vision, and that we were talking about, for example, in the table, making sure that that vision is not like floating up in the air, but it's practical. It's not corporate speak. It's something that everyone can relate to. That is the best way for people to feel engaged and to feel like they understand what's the direction of the organization from AI strategy standpoint, for instance. So let's make sure that we don't have any corporate speak, or gimmick in our strategy and communication. And the third and last point, I think, about scalability. We haven't touched upon this as much, but I really like the point that a couple of you mentioned around, how are we even measuring ROI? Does it make sense for us to always being accounting just the financial, let's say, expected cash flows, or should we looking also at the broader impact that specific use case, that specific investment we're making is going to have on our agility, on our ability to shorten the time to market of new applications, of new products and services? Because that's always something that maybe we cannot really track today, but obviously it's going to have a huge impact going forward. So to wrap it up, thank you so much for the conversation today. I'll be here today, and also make sure that if you have further questions with Microsoft, you're going to stop at their booth. They have like plenty of sessions there, so you will never get bored if you go there. So thank you so much for the time that you have dedicated to us, and have a nice reminder of the conference.